Good morning, Year 2. I hope you had a nice weekend. We're going to start this morning's maths lesson with our fact of the day, which is another fact from the 2 times table. But of course, it's also a fact from the 5 times table. So 2 times 5 equals 10. And the first thing we do, remember, is turn it round. So there is a picture of the fact turned round. So here we've got 5 times 2 equals 10. And once you've got those 2 facts, then you can make the inverse fact. So you put the biggest number first, the 10 goes first. And if you divide 10 up into 2s, you get 5 of them. And if you divide 10 up into 5s, you get 2 of them, which is what these 2 pictures show. If you push them all together again, you'd have 10. And then if you separate them out again, that's dividing 10 into smaller bits. Now, because 10 is a 2-digit number, we've got a 1 digit times a 1 digit makes a 2-digit number. It makes the mega facts a bit more tricky, and you have to really watch the zeros, because remember, you've already got a 0. 10 already has a 0. So let's try one that you might already know. Let's try 2 times 50. So that would be like having 2 50p's. If you had 2 50p's, how much money would you have? You'd actually have 100 pennies or £1, but we're going to write 100. So 2 times 50 is 100. So there's an extra 0 there and an extra 0 there because you already had one. And we can do that one the other way round. So 50 times 2 would also be 100. Now let's move the 0. Let's have 5 times 20. So if you had 5 20p's, you'd also have £1. You'd also have 100 pennies. And we can swap that one round as well. If you had 25p's, take a long time to count, but you'd also have £1. You'd have 100 pennies altogether. And if we think about dividing 100, if you divide 100 in 2, that's a bit like chopping it down the middle, you'd have 2 50s again. Or you could say dividing 100 into 2s, and you'd have 52s, so you'd have 50 of those. And if you divided 100 into 5, if you chopped it up into 5 bits, there would be 20 in each bit. So we've still got our fact in there. We've still got our 10, our 5, and our 2. The fact is still there. What else could we divide 100 into? You could divide it into 20s. And there'd be 5 20s. Or you could divide it into 50s. So that's how many 50p's are in £1. And there are 2. Now, if you try and make it any bigger, then you end up getting lots of zeros, so it gets a bit confusing. So maybe the only one we do is 2 times 500. And that can be a question mark one. And if you are going to write that answer, make sure you've got the right number of zeros. Right, I hope you've written those down neatly in your book, because there's no excuses now, because you can pause it. At school, you can't, so you can't catch up. You can do it now and pause and make sure you've written those down. So our TRP for today is, can I write multiplication and division number sentences to describe Numicon? Now, if you've forgotten what Numicon is, I think you'll remember when you see this picture. It's these tiles that, remember I said, were really helpful when we're learning about multiplication, because they are equal sets of a number. So here we've got a picture of some Numicon tiles. It says, how can Numicon help us to multiply? So if we had a multiplication number sentence like 2 times 3, we could get 2 sets of 3 and work out that the answer was 6. If the question was 4 times 4, let's write that down, 4 times 4, we could get 4 4s. 4, 4, 4, 4. And if you count up all the holes, we've got 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8 there, 9, 10, 11, 12 there, 13, 14, 15, 16 there. It would tell us that 4 times 4 equals 16. I'm just going to show you a mistake that people often make. So they look at that number sentence and they think, oh yeah, I can see a 3 and I can see a 5. So there's a 3, there's a 5. I'm going to count them all up, add them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that makes 8 altogether. So I'm going to write equals 8. And then the teacher's going to come along and put a dot there, because a dot means it's wrong. So think about, what mistake have they made? Why have they written 3 times 5 equals 8? What have they forgotten? Now I think what they've forgotten is times. They thought it was an add and they saw 3 and 5. They got a 3, got a 5, and they added them together. But what they really needed is 3 sets of 5. So they needed a 5, a 5, and a 5. So let's rub out the 8, because that definitely doesn't add up to 8. Then they could count them in 5s, which would be 5, 10, 15, and the answer's 15. So don't forget, when it's times, you have to have equal sets of the same number. Now today, what I want you to do is I'm going to show you some pictures of Numicon, and you're going to write 4 number sentences to describe each picture. So this is picture number 1. I'm going to help you with this one. So we're going to think, how many sets have we got first of all? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 sets. And then how many is in each set? 1, 2, 3. There's 3 in each set. So we've got 4 times 3. And so you can count all the little circles and tell me what 4 times 3 is. Then you're going to turn it around to make the other times. And you're going to write the answer. Remember, the answer is going to be the same. And after you've done that, you're going to do 2 divides. So you're going to put the big number first, and you're going to divide the number by 3, and that will equal 4. And then you're going to divide the number by 4, and that will equal 3. So if I change, let's go try and get a different colour pen. So you have got to work out what that number's going to be. Remember, it's the same number. 4 times 3 equals, 3 times 4 equals, and then that number's also going to go up here. Apologies for the really wibbly drawing. So once you've found the big number, you can fill it in, and I want 4 number sentences to describe that picture. Now here's the next picture. I'm going to try and do this one a bit more neatly. So we want a times something times something equals something. And then you can swap the little numbers. Something times something equals something. And then we're going to do 2 divides. Something divided by something. And then another divide. So you need 4 number sentences for each picture. And there's another picture to describe. So 2 times and 2 divides. So remember to pause the screen. And there's the last picture. So for each one of those pictures, I want you to write 2 times number sentences and 2 divides. Remember, you need to find the number of groups, how many's in the group, and then the big number. And the big number with Numicon is always going to be counting all the little holes to find the big number. So good luck with that, and you can tell me how you got on later. So Year 2, I thought it would be helpful, especially when we're on Zoom, if you made yourself a set of digit cards so we could make some numbers without having to unmute and say your answers. You could just hold up the answers. So if you start with a piece of paper or even a piece of cardboard, might work better, then it'd be a bit stronger. We're going to fold it in half, long ways. Then I'm going to fold it in half again. Doesn't have to be too neat. Then in half again. And that will give you enough to make 8 digit cards to start with. 2, 3, make sure we do a proper 4. Now we're going to need 2 more digits. So you're going to need another piece of paper. So make sure you've got an 8 and a 9. And on the spare ones, we could have some of the math symbols. So we could have an add, a take away, an equals, a times sign, a divide sign, and maybe if you're not sure, we could do a question mark at the end. So you can just hold that up if you really haven't got a clue what the answer is. So now they all need cutting out. So now you've got a set of digit cards, you can use them to answer any question. You can make numbers with them. So if I ask you what is 2 times 6, you'll be able to hold up the answer and show me. So you could use these cards to make like fact of the day, different number sentences. So if you had 2 times 3 equals 6, you can swap the small numbers. And then you've got 3 times 2 equals 6. And if you want to make it into a division number sentence, move the big number to the front, swap the times. So you can have 6 divided by 3 equals 2. And to make the next one, swap the little numbers again. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. So under the description to the video, there will be some links to different multiplication games that you can practice at home. So if you follow the links, you can have a go. This one is about finding multiples of 2. So you have to think about which numbers would be in the 2 times table. These ones are a bit trickier. There's lots of different games to choose. You can select year 2, or if you want to make it a bit easier, select the year 1, or sometimes they let you choose which times table you're practicing. And the ICT Games website, which we use a lot in school, has quite a few different games to practice. Now remember, you're just practicing times 2, times 5 and times 10. Don't be tempted to choose the others until you're really confident at doing those. And if you log on to SumDog, I've set up a competition for practicing those 3 times tables. So I can see who's already had a go. I think Indy and Lavender have already had a go. And I'm going to watch the scoreboard to see how many more people log on to the games.